I kind of wanted to do a video showing how we've expanded the coop and changed it a little bit over the last 2 weeks. Now, this part right here is the original house for our ducks, and it's only about 4 foot wide and it's 8 foot long, but we went ahead and we expanded it to add all of this space over here. So now it's a good minimum of 64 square feet. It's a pretty big coop. It's at least 8 foot long, and I believe it's more than 8 foot wide. So it's really cool, and it really does make for a huge area. We started raising our own ducklings and hatching out, and when I did that, there just wasn't enough room to kind of keep up with all of these little guys and all of the big ducks. These cages, they include our rabbits. They take up a good amount of space. And so I really needed something that would allow the big ducks to kind of come in. And the cool thing is, all of this space under here, the big ducks just come in here and lay underneath it. And it kind of leaves all of this open area here. And I've actually have so much room in here right now, I went ahead and moved the feed buckets in here. So that helps out. And this is kind of the duck feed. I just pour it into a large feeder, and then every few days I will come fill it up. But sometimes, especially during the warmer months when they're not eating as much to stay warm and they're foraging more, it can take a couple of weeks before they eat all of the food in the feeder. And this here is what I use for the baby ducks. So it kind of makes it easy to have one for duck food and one for rabbit food. Now, we have a ton of ducks compared to rabbits. We just have 2 rabbits right now. We are looking to expand and get a buck, but this is our doe. These are both Rex rabbits, and we kind of chose them because of how soft their fur is, but they're also good for meat if you want to use them for meat. They're just a great all-around rabbit to have. Now, for the most part, they're a gentle breed, but these Rex are full size, they're large, and they can be cranky, especially during breeding. I find that the bucks are crankier. But also, if you're looking for something a little smaller and maybe not for meat, mini Rex are a good option, in my opinion. So I stopped using hay in our bedding because there's such a big problem. I had all of this hay that I was cleaning out from the coop and from the brooders for the baby ducks and even for the rabbits, and no place to put it because it wasn't something that I could use in compost for the garden because of the chemicals that were in it. So we started using the wood chips, and the wood chips, they break down really well. So I'm gonna I've been putting them in the compost bin, and I think that's a really great option. And I'm going to see if I can grow some plants in them. I will not be putting them in my existing garden, but maybe down in the pathways and in a few small trial beds to build just to be safe. I don't want to poison existing gardens if there's more chemicals in these wood chips than I'm aware of. Oh, these guys are messy. So I've started just kind of keeping the feed in here and scooping it out. Now, these baby ducks, I have to refill their feed several times a day. This is not a one-time-a-day thing. So what I started doing for the younger set of baby ducklings is keeping a clean milk jug out here. Now, you really want to make sure that you wash it well with soap and water because that bacteria from the milk, especially if you live in a warm area, kind of populates and starts growing really fast. So you don't want to make your birds sick, and also you don't want to deal with that smell. I kind of add water to all of the feed, and it makes it softer for the babies, but also lasts longer. And I put too much water, but that's okay. They do not particularly care. Let me set this down. Ducklings are funny because they can actually jump about a foot high. So these guys are already trying to steal all the food. It's actually getting rather warm in here, so I think at least for a couple hours, I'm going to turn off their heat lamp. Oh no! They're making a mess of things. It's kind of... I was having a hard time getting that in there with one hand, so I had to pause it for a minute. But I went ahead and now I only do this once a day. I fill up the water jug, and I have to come in here every few hours and fill up the water. Ducklings are notorious for using all of their water and just completely trashing it. It's just what they do. Now, I started using the pine shavings in here too, and in order to keep the pine shavings from falling through all of the cracks, what I did is, right, these just happen to be pizza boxes, but I started cleaning and saving all of the cardboard. So we ordered pizza a lot. This winter, we had a lot of people over. It's holiday season. So we used the large boxes to line the duckling pins and even for the rabbits, and then pack shavings on top. Now these shavings are from yesterday, so they've compacted quite a bit since I put them in there. And these are all of our older ducklings. They have a tendency to kind of pick on and trample the younger ducklings, so they get a bigger cage. They're starting to feather out right now. See, on this one you can kind of see the feathers coming in. And so pretty soon they're gonna have to go somewhere else. I really want to move them into the big coop, but I'm less worried about the big ducks picking on them and more worried about things like chicken hawks, because the open run, that's the big run that's 900 square feet, it's not covered. And the smaller run isn't covered yet. It's partially covered by that netting that we use. This is the netting I'm talking about. It's kind of more of for growing plants and cucumbers and those things, so it's not really doing a great job at protecting anybody or really anything. So I want to close this off completely and then use some smaller wire, because ducklings can squeeze right through this wire. And then this, once I put a cover on it and replace this wire here, it'll be a good area for the little ducklings to safely go out and forage and hang out. So I've also started putting cardboard in for the rabbits too, and it's really helped. It keeps their feet from getting all torn up on the cages, which is nice. But this rabbit in particular, they do get bored and they do like to chew, so they do pull the cardboard out and rip it up. Now, I haven't seen her eat it, but I wouldn't be surprised. So if you have a rabbit that's prone to eating things, I'd really watch out. Another thing is that rabbits actually like to chew, so if there are larger pieces of wood inside of the shavings, they will dig out that pine and chew on it. So if you kind of have to watch to see what chemicals are used or how they dry their pine shavings, because rabbits, they just chew on things. That's what they do. Their teeth do not stop growing, so it helps them to grind their teeth down. So this is pretty much it. My ducks are not laying anymore. This was the last batch of ducklings that were hatched out. These were all hatched kind of in groups. They were in the same incubator. These guys started hatching a week to 2 weeks before these guys. So that's kind of how we ended up with 2 different age groups. And we just didn't have enough eggs to incubate a large set of eggs all at one time. So we just started putting them in. We'd save them for 7 days and put them in. And that does get you a lower fertility rate. And I wouldn't say fertility rate, but definitely a lower hatchability rate. And so we only ended up with 15. But for us, 15 is a lot of ducklings when we weren't prepared. And at the time, we only had a 4-foot wide by 8-foot long coop. Now it's double in size, which is great. But there's still not a lot of room for raising babies, so that's something that we'll be figuring out over the next couple of days. Now, as you know, we raise Welsh Harlequins, but these are crossed. They're bred from our first group of crosses. We bred ourselves. We crossed our khaki Campbell hens with our Welsh Harlequin Drake and got some really heavily penciled Campbell ducks. They look kind of like Rowans do, but they're more dark Campbells. They're really nice color, really good penciling, really great black feet, really great black bills. And that's one gene I've really selected for, So every single baby that we had at the time of hatching had a black bill and darker feet. Now, as they age out, the male's bills are turning lighter and their feet are also lightening up, as you can see. So this one I would say is very likely a male. And they're cranky because they want water, so of course they're kind of nipping at my hand a little bit. These guys, just as soon as they get water, they just start playing in it and everything else. They're at that age where they're going through a lot of water and making a really big mess. If you're just starting out on ducklings, I just want to warn you that they are probably some of the messiest creatures I've ever seen. They are really fun. They are a lot of fun. They have big personalities, as you can see, but they go through so much water. And because these bigger guys and girls go through so much water, I don't fill up their water bottle with this gallon. This gallon is simply for the babies because they go through so much food and so much water. And after a certain age, I will stop mashing their feed like this because it doesn't become worth it. They will just mess it up playing in it. And what I start to do is pour their feed into a rabbit feeder. And so this is it. I just fill it up. All I have to do is turn around and come in here and scoop it out and push it in there. They're old enough to know that they need water to digest their food and to swallow it. So I don't have to worry about them choking on it like you would a baby duckling, a younger baby duckling. If I can figure out how to maybe set up this down here, wire it off, I might make it so that the older babies can play down here and the bigger ducks can come in. I'm a little hesitant to do that just because I'm really looking at, within the next 2 months or so, putting a top on that part of the coop that I showed you where the netting is. That's really a big thing. Now, because these guys are so heavily crossed, and I mean heavily crossed, they are a little different in color than you might expect. And not only did I breed the first set to cross them, now Welsh Harlequins do come for Campbell ducks, so they're just another type. Where they originated, they were known as honey Campbells. So the genetics are pretty much the same, except for they have a gene called the lightener gene that lightens up their feathers. And that's why they're a lighter in color. But what gives these guys so much mallard coloring on top of everything, and I really can't tell you what they're going to look like, is because I got 3 ducks when I bought my Welsh Harlequins. I got 3 free babies because they were crosses. A wild mallard had flew in the pen and bred with some of their Welsh Harlequin ducks, and all they had was Welsh Harlequin ducks at the time. So all 3 of those babies ended up looking completely different, and they all turned out to be drakes. And I didn't cull them or process them until about a month ago, if that. And so all of these babies could possibly be mixed with any of those drakes that were half Welsh Harlequin, half mallard. And so their colors are to be determined, almost. So I can't go by what I usually do and say, oh, well, because I have this Campbell hen that's a chocolate colored and I bred it to my silver Welsh Harlequins, the males are going to be mallard colored and the females will be chocolate. That wasn't the case here. As you can see, there are different size variations, and I can almost guarantee that some of these are definitely female. I would say we have about 3 females and 4 males, but I'm just not for certain. So unfortunately for these, the females may be bred out and raised out and put into our grow out pen for just duck eggs to raise for pets and eggs, but I don't have a room for this many drakes, so all of the extra drakes we process and they go into the freezer. It's just the best thing for our homestead and for our animals to not have too many drakes. But it's impossible to raise drakes all this time and try to sell them. It's not worth it because they don't lay eggs. People aren't interested. And on top of that, they just don't... It just doesn't make sense to spend all that time raising and feeding out an animal to sell it to someone who might process it themselves. So because we want to become a little more dependent, a little more independent and less dependent on the food system, it really works out great for us. Now down here it gets confusing because you can see they're starting to feather, to lose some feathers and gain some. Down here it gets a little weird because we have ones that have chocolate coloring, like these. 2 of them came with chocolate coloring and a lot that are not. And so they're just really wild colored. One of them, that's the tall one that looks a little weird. That one is actually really light colored, so it was the yellow color that the Welsh Harlequin females are when they're crossed with the chocolate drake. So that one may actually be a female that's crossed, but I don't really know. There's a lot going on here, and as you can see, they've already drank and played in and bathed and spilt out most of the water that we put into their little brooder at the beginning of this video. So I'm going to go ahead and get these big ducklings some water because they are freaking out if they're not having any water. They just spilled right through it. So I still have to come out here and fill up this big guy a couple times a day, but that's something I have to go out to the spigot to do because it needs to be washed out. Older ducklings are very messy. When they drink water, it's not as bad right now, but it tends to get the feed kind of pushed back into it and fermented. And it's really gross and can grow a lot of bacteria. So I'm going to have to go wash this out and give it to them. But I kind of wanted to show off what we're doing here and just the different ways of raising the animals, because it is really cool to watch them grow and see kind of how they're doing at the different stages. Now I'm turning this off because it's pretty warm today. It's in the 70s. It's higher in the coop because we have it kind of up here. They're up against the wood, so it's all blocked off and they have the light just flaring at them. And that's not good once they get a certain age to have that much lighting. So I hope this kind of helps you guys out if you're trying to figure out how you want to do ducklings and how you want to change up your setup. This may be an option for you. It was a really good option for us, especially with the pine shavings. So hopefully that helps. It never ceases to amaze me how getting water into these babies can instantly make them happy. They go from raging lunatics begging to get out and be held to just enjoying the water. Not just drinking, but they will use this to clean their feathers. They just enjoy playing in it. And I found that raising it higher doesn't really work because I had this raised way up here to where they could barely get into it, and they can hop about a foot high and jump into it at this age. So these guys have a ball.